Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be reviewing the Chuwi Hi13, so with that being said, let's get right into it. What we have here is a 3K IPS 13.5-inch display, which is pretty massive for a tablet. Now you may be asking, is it a tablet or a laptop? Well, it's actually both. If you go ahead here and pull on the display, it comes out like so, and all the hardware is actually within here. So it's a standalone tablet, it's running Windows 10, and we'll get into the specs in just a bit here. But pretty much, this is where the brains and the storage and everything else is stored. But this thing right here is optional. You can buy it separately. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the I/O ports. So first of all, on the tablet itself, again, we have the 13.5-inch display. The bezels here are not bad because it does give you some room to hold the tablet without touching the screen, which is important. And here you have the home button. Then you have a front-facing camera that sucks, obviously, and that is it for the front. Very simple and straightforward. So let's look at the bottom. Here we have the magnetic dock connections as well as the pinout for the optional keyboard. And if you take a look at the back here, we have the rear camera, which also sucks, obviously, and some branding, QC sticker, and that is all. Now what we have here is a full aluminum body. It feels really nice. And then we have a nice shiny trim on the end here. It is very nice and aesthetically pleasing. And this thing is very nice and sturdy. There's no bending whatsoever. This thing is a solid piece of hardware, on the outside at least. Now if we take a look at the right side, here we have two rear spring speakers as well as some screw holes. And if we take a look at the left side, we have two more additional speakers and a bunch of I/O. So what we have here is a headphone jack, a micro HDMI port, a microphone, micro USB OTG port, a fully functional USB Type-C port, as well as an SD card reader to enable you to expand storage. And finally, on the top, we have the power button and volume up and down. And if we take a look at the keyboard dock here, it is actually one of the best docks I have seen by far. So let's go ahead and take a look around it here. So first of all, we have the QWERTY keyboard, a bunch of FN shortcuts which are very important and useful. For example, here we have the mouse disable button, brightness changing, settings, volume up and down, and some media keys, which is very, very useful. And over here we have some of the important buttons right here. It is actually one of the best optional keyboards I have used by far. First of all, the tactile feedback is really nice, travel distance is great, and the distance between the keys themselves is really good. Here's a quick sample of what it sounds like. Now the touchpad here is not perfect, unfortunately, but with that being said, the way I recommend using it is by just using the tap function or the two-finger tap for the right clicks. Because unfortunately, like all other laptops that are trying to copy Apple's design of a touchpad, most of them tend to fail. So if you try to use the touchpad while clicking like this, it will not work. You're gonna have issues, you're gonna have misclicks, and that's that. So again, if you're using the touchpad, just use it as a regular touchpad by just touching and not clicking. Now if we move on to the side, there's something pretty awesome about this dock. It actually has two USB 2.0 ports on each side here. And guess what? Unlike other tablets, this dock actually supports these heavy double-layered external hard drives. This is a 4TB hard drive that is actually this thick. It is a regular 2.5-inch, but it is that thick. And these things draw a lot of power, and I have seen it struggle with many other devices, which is really, really good to see. Now, if you're planning to do schoolwork or writing documents, I would totally recommend getting an external mouse, like this one right here. This is a Xiaomi mouse. It runs on Bluetooth or a 2.4 GHz dongle that can be stored inside of it, and it really does increase productivity. Alright, so now let's go ahead and talk about the specs. The specs here are unfortunately kind of sad, and that is because Chuwi really likes to put high-resolution displays on low-end processors. So what we have here is a low-powered Apollo Lake processor with 4 GB of RAM. It also has 64 GB of storage and Windows 10 Home. It does have HD Wi-Fi, which is very important because everything nowadays should really have it. And as you could probably guess, low-end processors and high-resolution displays, they simply do not mix. And having a 3K resolution on a 13.5-inch display simply does not work, and you simply don't get to utilize it unless you are drawing, which this tablet does have. It does have a stylus that supports around 1,000 levels of pressure sensitivity. We'll be talking about that at the end of the video, and yeah, let's move on. Now, one nice thing that this tablet does have is the USB Type-C port. And not just that, but it also charges off the USB Type-C port, unlike other tablets, which means it comes with a nice little adapter here. Here we have an adapter that has 12 volts, 2 amps, and the output is a Type-C cable, which is cool. It is very nice and long, about 3 feet, but unfortunately the Chuwi Hi13 only comes in a European plug. Now I live in Canada, and how I dealt with that is by simply getting one of the 2-prong cables that I have laying around from laptops or whatever. You can find it online, you can find it anywhere, and you can plug it in and use the adapter, because this adapter does support 100 to 240 volts from 50 and 60 Hz. Now that's not the only thing you can actually use a USB Type-C port for. Here we have a USB Type-C adapter. You plug this into the tablet and it gives you a bunch of different ports. You can have a card reader, multiple USB 3.0 ports, HDMI out, and whatnot. But the one I have here in specific is from Grandvella on Amazon. And basically this one has a USB 3.0, HDMI out, and a USB Type-C port that I could also charge the tablet with while using this adapter, which is cool. So you guys can see here we have a display, and we're going to go ahead and plug in the display port and plug that in into the tablet itself. And there we go. So pretty cool. And with that being said, we still have the micro HDMI out port, so we can possibly have 3 displays running at the same time. And the tablet having a 13.5-inch display is pretty helpful if you're doing multitasking. So here I have a mouse, it's plugged in, and I can open a window up and move it back and forth between both displays. Now you can see the resolution is changing because the display is actually on 200% scaling right now. So let's go ahead, dive in deep into the software and see what this thing can do. First things first, here we have the eMMC storage that is using a Samsung drive for that. So it's not an SSD, it's more like the kind of storage you would get from a flash drive, but it is much faster. And if you take a look at the network adapters, you can see that it has the Intel dual band wireless AC adapter, which is very important because you cannot have a tablet nowadays without it. And finally, here we have the quad-core processor. It's an Intel Celeron based on Apollo Lake, and it is the N3450. Now the base clock speed is 1.1, but it can also turbo up to 2.2. Now if you take a look at the idle CPU usage, it hovers around 4%, 3%, so it's pretty good. In the memory here we have the 4GB DDR3 running at 1600 MHz, and the storage drive itself is at 0%, which is good, so it's not lagging behind. Now one thing I do want to talk about here is the power options. In most of the Chinese devices I've seen so far, they have issues with the power options. For example, in the GPD win here that we have reviewed before, you only have balance mode in the power options. But here we do have power saving and high performance, but if you go ahead and click on any of them, the brightness automatically goes to lowest settings, and you can't change the brightness. You can see I'm moving the slider and nothing is happening. Now the flickering you saw was just in camera because of the brightness and the shutter speed of the camera not synced up. That's kind of unfortunate because in some cases the high performance mode does help in stabilize some of the lag spikes you get every now and then when you're playing a video. And yes, I have updated this tablet with creators updates. So this is how the tablet it is right now with the latest updates from Microsoft. So let's move on. And one last thing, if you take a look at the display settings here, we can see that it is at 250% recommended scaling. And the resolution is 3000 by 2000. So it's a 3:2 aspect ratio. So it's good for drawing, document reading, writing documents, or reading manga, which we'll check out in just a bit. I just want to show you this. If we go ahead and go back to 100% scaling, everything will become super ultra tiny. For example, this is the mouse, and you can see how small the start menu is. It is extremely small. And if we go ahead and open that up, that's just insane. So everything is super tiny. You can read the text if you get close enough because you do have the resolution, but the display is just not big enough to utilize that display. You can only make use of it if you're doing graphic design, photography, or drawing, but we'll get to that in just a bit here. Now the storage speed is not the fastest, of course, but they definitely get the job done. So that's that. Now one thing you're probably all wondering, how well does 4K video play? Well, it actually does pretty okay. You have to have absolutely nothing running in the background in order for this thing to excel. Now when you first start a video, it will stutter, but eventually it will even out and stay stable and play the video without any issues. Again, as long as you're not doing anything in the background. Even by moving the cursor on top of the screen where the menu comes up, it affects that too. Now, this happens with 4K as well as 1080p video. That's the cost you pay for a low-end CPU and a high resolution display. The display itself is really nice. It is very nice and vibrant. It is actually beautiful. The camera doesn't pick it up, but it is really, really nice. Now, another thing that is nice about the display, it can get very nice and bright. The colors are vivid, the colors are fantastic, it is IPS of course, and again, it is high resolution. Now, if you're a photographer or a graphic designer that wants to showcase their work on this kind of tablet or do quick edits on the go, this might be for you, but I still don't recommend getting this tablet just for that because again, it doesn't have the best CPU. For example, here I have a very complex, heavy file in Photoshop, and I'm gonna go ahead and just grab a couple of characters here and resize them. And you can see how laggy it can get. So not a very work efficient way, but it does work. But one thing for sure, this tablet is not meant for Photoshop. But if you're a photographer and you want to do quick edits on the go while having the resolution that you need, the tablet can definitely do that for you. Not only that, but you can actually show your clients your photos and your portfolio on it while you're on the go. It does have the resolution, the brightness, the colors, and the size. Now if I do just some regular tweaks, this tablet handles it beautifully. No issues whatsoever, and you can see that it does a pretty good job at handling everything. Because again, this is just simple tweaking. There's nothing special going on here. Nothing too crazy. It does the job and it works. Now, is it laggy? Yeah, it definitely is laggy, but it does work while doing simple tweaks like these. Because of course you're editing one frame. If you're thinking about editing video, forget about it. Unless you want to drop the resolution of this thing down to like 720p in order to use it. So overall, if you want to do some edits on the go, then this can work for you. So let's go ahead and talk about the Stylus Pen here. So it's got a full aluminum body, a metal clip right over here, 2 buttons, some kind of indicator hole, maybe it's a reset button, 1 nib, there are no replacements, and in the back, there's a screw cap where it stores the Quad A battery. Now this thing does come with a Quad A battery, but I recommend buying one off Amazon or something because the one that it comes with definitely sucks. I got about 8 batteries for about $7 or so on Amazon Prime, so it's a pretty good deal. So this thing has about 1024 levels of pressure sensitivity, and it comes with all the drivers pre-installed. Now one thing I noticed about Photoshop and this processor with this resolution is sometimes it works fine, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know why, but one thing for sure is it's the resolution and the low-end processor, because when I drop the resolution to something like 1080p, it works much better, but what's the point? You're not getting proper scaling, not proper pixels, and you're gonna get some blurriness. So for example here, I got this canvas and you can see just how laggy it is. Now, yes, you do have palm rejection and that works, but sometimes it glitches out and it stops drawing when you pick up the pen and do that. So you just gotta get used to it. But once you get used to it, it works just fine. Because this thing is not your regular electromagnetic pen. It's the type that has a battery. It's similar to what the Surface Pro has. Photoshop, forget about it. Unless you want to drop the resolution, but what's the point in that? So now stay tuned for the end of the video where I'll be comparing it to something even better. Now, if you go to Sketchpad on the other hand, it works beautifully, no issues whatsoever. A very nice, silky experience with no lag whatsoever. Again, it is beautiful. It works just fine when it does. Now, if you're just getting it for the Sketchpad, then that's perfect, but why would you if you can get something better? So the pen experience, the tip, if you try to do something like this, it won't work too well. But if you try a regular 45-degree angle, it will work just fine, and you can get really low level paintings. Now, if you don't press hard enough, for example, right now, I am not even putting any pressure. It's just the weight of the pen on the tablet. It is not drawing at all. Again, you just gotta really get used to it. And yeah, now we do have the creators update. So let's take a look at Paint 3D, for example. Something that you probably want to use if you have a tablet that has a stylus pen like this. So let's go ahead and try to draw. As guys can see, it is extremely laggy. So yeah. Now just to show you guys, if I go ahead and drop the resolution to a custom resolution that I have made here, 1920 by 1280, we should see a drastic improvement in performance, which is something that this tablet should have been. It should have been a 1080p panel. I mean, especially for this CPU. It's a low-end CPU. Don't stress it out by throwing at it a high resolution display. And that is something that Chuwi has a problem with. They always throw in a low-end CPU with a high resolution display. Maybe they get the panels for cheaper, but honestly, why do they keep doing that? So you can see drastic change in performance. This thing is much faster now. If you go ahead and add a 3D object, you can see that the performance is much better. So Chuwi, please put an M3 processor on your future tablet. Can you use a tablet with 1920 by 1280? You can definitely can, as long as you're not getting up and close to it to look at the pixels themselves. But overall, it does work with that resolution. Here's Photoshop once again. You can see that the scaling is kind of messed up because I haven't signed out and signed back in because I changed the resolution, but you can see how much improvement in performance you get by just putting a 1080p resolution on this thing. But again, why would you buy a tablet just to drop the resolution? So that is the Stylus Pen for you. It works fine, and that is the Stylus Pen for you. So it does take time to get used to, but the build quality and the feel in the hand is fantastic. It is just really nicely crafted. But unfortunately, the tablet itself just simply sucks. Now, something you guys might be interested in is reading manga or comics on something like this. And if we go ahead and change it to portrait mode, we can see that here we have a super ultra mega large reading tablet. So here's my hand for scale. It is extremely large, and here is my smartphone. This is a 5.5-inch display on my smartphone, and you can see like the size comparison. It is just insane. Here's the mouse for comparison, and here's a close-up of it. So if you like manga, I mean, definitely this is a large tablet you can enjoy stuff on. I mean, just take a look at this thing. It is massive. I mean, all the details, you can see every little detail, and is just beautiful. If you like reading or reading books or pictures or whatever, this is something definitely worth checking out. Now you may be wondering, how well do PDFs read here? Well, it's kind of laggy, right? It does work, but it is kind of laggy. Here's the mouse. Here I got my mouse and I'm scrolling, and you can see how kind of laggy it is. It does work, but not the best performance, of course. Alright, and before we get into gaming performance, let's see what kind of audio quality we can get out of here. Alright, so the audio quality here is okay. There's no distortion whatsoever, but a couple things here. First of all, it's lacking some good bass. Second of all, the volume levels are very low. Even though we have 4 speakers, the volume levels are very low. And one last thing, and that is when you hold the tablet like so, you will be covering the bottom 2 speakers of whatever you're holding it. And that will actually result in a lower volume. Even though we have 4, you can still notice the volume missing when you cover either speakers on each side while you're holding it on the bottom over here. Alright, and finally, let's take a look at what kind of gaming performance we can get out of this thing. Alright, as you guys have saw, the gaming performance is not good at all. So if you're getting this tablet, definitely don't get it for gaming. And we're almost done with this review. And the last thing we can talk about here is the battery life. The battery life here can last about 6 hours with heavy use. I went from watching videos to browsing Reddit and 9gag, doing Windows updates, playing little games here and there, and overall I got about 6 hours. Now you can, and that was with 75% brightness as well as the hard drive over there plugged in. So you can definitely extend the battery life of this thing. It just really depends on what you're doing. So what do I think about this thing? Well, I think it's a really missed chance by Chuwi. If they only put an M3 processor in there, this thing would have been a fantastic tablet. Just like this Cube Mix Plus tablet right here. That is just fantastic in every way. It has the performance, it has the display, the pen, stylus, and everything else that this thing has. But the performance is just, this thing just outperforms this by miles. You can check out my review on it. But I might do a comparison video later on for these two things. But we already know what's up with this thing. But I will do an updated video, talk about my experience with it so far, and just finish off the review for this guy right here. So for the price that you're paying, honestly, I don't think this is a good buy at all. Unless you know what you're looking for. Maybe you're looking for a large tablet to put on your wall. Maybe you're looking for a tablet to sign signatures at a convention or something. Maybe you're just using it to show your photos to people. Or to just simply watch videos on it like so. So you can actually reverse this and use it like that to watch your videos, or just close it up like that, and then you got yourself a compact tablet. And you don't have to take out the keyboard and put it somewhere else when you don't want to use the keyboard. But yeah guys, that is pretty much it for this review. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care everyone.